and welcome to Thinking Solo, where we talk about ways to succeed in business and in life. I am your host, Ryan Derousseau. I'm a fee-only financial advisor, and you can find me at thinkingcapfinancial.com. I am not recording from my normal place today as I'm traveling. So I'm actually at my childhood home because I'm visiting my parents. They live in Texas. I live in New York. But want to make sure the kids get to see grandparents and cousins and whatnot. And so we are in where I grew up, but that's what life is like when you're working for yourself, right? You kind of roll with the punches, you record where you need to, or you manage things where you need to, and then go along with your day. And so that's what I'm doing today. So I hope you don't mind the accommodations being a little different. Today, we're going to talk about something that it's very common to come across when you are working with a self-employed, and that is how to build wealth after you turn 40. Because often when we are in self-employment, we have many years where it takes us to get to the point where we are educated or have the life experience to then go out and run our own business. And so it's not uncommon to be trying to catch up for things after the age of 40. And so today I want to talk about a few things that you can do in order to make sure that you are building well and growing well while that business is starting to succeed after 40 and beyond. And so it's a really important time period for those of you who are just getting started. And so these are going to be some ways to get started. And then, of course, there will be a movie review at the end. I am so happy you're here, and thanks for listening. You've heard advice that says, hey, save as soon as you can because of compound interest and whatnot. But when you're self-employed, that's may or may not happen just because you are kind of hustling and hustling. Per like my experience with where I am today, you're kind of just rolling with the punches. And when doing so, that means that you may or may not have started at a young age. And if you hadn't started at a young age, then you are really trying to catch up once your business starts to turn after 40. How are you going to do that? Well, there's some really, really great ways that the self-employed can make sure that they are saving a large amount, a good amount, so they don't have to work until they're 80 unless they want to, which is also very common, but they can continue to work as long as they want. Meanwhile, they don't feel like they have to work. And that's really what we want to get to. We want to be able to work if we want to, but we don't want to have to work. And so these are some steps to make sure that you're in that situation as your business really starts to thrive and you're getting older. The first thing is to remember that the tax code really wants you to save. Okay, so the the IRS once has created incentives because the Congress has said, hey, we want Americans to be able to save for their retirement. IRS has created incentives within retirement accounts to make sure that they can save. And that is true for the self-employed. So opening up a solo 401k, a SEP IRA, or something similar that will allow you to save at higher rates than, say, like a simple IRA or a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA, like these will allow you to save a lot more money. Up to, I think, 72,000 is the current year's max limit. And so making sure that you have those tools in place, not because you need to save $72,000 a year, but because you can save a lot more than 8,000 or $7,500, which is what it is for under 50 in a traditional IRA, for example. And so we want to make sure that we are using the tools that are available. And these are tools become even more important once you're after 50, because then there's also catch-up contributions where you can add another $8,000 into these accounts. So you're saving more and more and more. Meanwhile, you have fewer years for these to grow. So it's important to save more money during this time period. Hey, by the way, you're getting a tax benefit by doing that because you're keeping more of the money. You're not paying taxes on it today. You'll pay taxes on it in the future if it's a traditional contribution. And that's when your income typically drops. So you're actually kind of gaming the system. So if you're someone who really wants to do that and make sure they're optimizing how much they're paying in taxes, that's another reason to do it this way. So that's one of the first things to do. Get those tax advantage accounts. And if you're over 50, make sure to get those catch-up contributions going as well. Now, when we are self-employed, what we have is variable income. It goes up and down. We never know quite how much we're going to make on a regular basis, but that doesn't mean it should change how we should save. We should save the exact same amount every month, assuming that we have all our other expenses and needs met. And so trying to turn the um, the savings into this as a into this a straight line is going to be really important because that will mean that we're consistently doing it. We're consistently building uh, money towards our long-term needs. We're consistently building that passive income stream that we're going to use many years down the line. But also, we're taking advantage of what's called dollar cost averaging, where when the market is up, you're going to be buying fewer and fewer shares. When the market is down, you're going to be buying more shares. Over the course of time, that essentially means you're buying low and selling high with more of your shares. And so that's a really valuable thing. Dollar cost averaging tends to outperform just lump sum investing over the course of time. And so dollar cost averaging is actually your friend. And you can do that if you are saving consistently and investing on a regular basis, as opposed to trying to just do a lump sum at the end of the year when your tax person tells you how much you can save. And so putting 2,000, 3,000 a month is going to help you in the long run. When you work for an employer, they often have what's called a match. So you get 2, 3, 4%. I've seen 6% or higher in some cases. And so it's really a fantastic way for an employee to kind of increase their rate of saving. Now, when you work for yourself, you're able to save a lot more because if you have a solo 401k, right, you can put 24,500 as the employee, just like an employee in a regular 401k does. But you can also put in additional 20, $40,000 up to 72,000 with the two combined, the employee and the employer contribution a year. And so you have that capability to take what's the employer match and really supersize it, especially if you don't have any employees, because you're not having to worry about covering their share as well. And so if you are going out on your own, you leaving money on the table, quote unquote, but not really, because you can save so much more in a solo 401k, or even probably in a SEP IRA than you can in a regular 401k. And so it's important to keep that in mind as you're moving forward. We're not just trying um, to just match what we did as an employee, but we can actually go above and beyond it. And that's how we also compensate for lack of things like an employee match or something like that. So that's really important to do and incorporate into your regular savings plan. One thing you don't want to do, especially when you're over 40 in self-employment, is put too much emphasis on selling the business, because that kind of creates a situation where you have this lottery card that you're going to cash in at some point. But a lot of businesses aren't worth what you think you can sell them for, or worth a lot less than what you sell them for. And if you are a service-based business, it's very possible that the business doesn't operate without you, which means there's very little to sell, since you will no longer be operating once you sell the business. And so you don't want to put too much emphasis on the business. You want to make sure that you are saving outside of it. So you're building wealth beyond the organization that you're creating. That will really help with your long-term protection and ensure that you are putting the business in its rightful place. Now, if you can sell it down the line, that's fantastic. But in the meantime, let's capture income along the way. Let's capture profits along the way. So we're building your wealth along with it. And those are really the four things that I would focus on when building wealth after 40 within the business. You're going to have to worry about other things like healthcare and long-term disability and just regular cash flow. But at the same time, we need to start building wealth. And these are the things that will help do so, avoiding sort of the risks through insurance, like health insurance and long-term disability on the other hand. And hopefully that helps as you begin that process in self-employment. Today's movie review is a newer movie called Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie. This was a kind of a surprise hit earlier in the year, and it's from director Matthew Johnson. It's him and his partner Jay. Matt and Jay are trying to book a gig at a local, I think it's Toronto, club as a band. it's a long running web series and show and whatnot. But the movie is fantastic because one, it's hilarious. It's just full on. I mean, I've never actually watched any of their stuff. They're fairly new to me, but you don't need to have seen their stuff to really enjoy the movie. You get it right away and you jump right in and you're kind of on, if you're on its wavelength, you're going to have a really good time. But it's about two, you know, middle-aged artists who want to book this gig at this local club, and instead of building songs and repertoire, they come up with crazy schemes to make it so the Rivoli has to book them. And so there is an obvious underlying entrepreneurial spirit in all of this because they're coming up with unique ways to get attention. Of course, they are using the complete wrong ways to get attention when you're trying to build a band. And you also often see that in self-employment. And so, one, this is a hilarious movie that you'll enjoy, but also there is a layer of entrepreneurship and misaligned goals and targets when you are trying to build a business along with it. And so there's a lot to really take away, but it also the underlying message is what you're actually trying to do and achieve in reaching your goals. And are those relevant to actual what makes you happy in life? And that is also a wonderful message to remember as you're building a business, because you always want to remember why you started this, why you're doing this, and why you're, grinding it out the way you are, because what you want is happiness and yes, some financial incentive, but also protection and all these other things. And if you've gone above and beyond that, then you really need to look yourself in the mirror and say why. And this movie kind of lets you look into that mirror a little bit. And so it's really wonderful. I saw it on a plane, so I know it is streaming, and it's definitely worth catching if you see it. That's today's show. Thanks for joining us. Like, as always, you can find me at YouTube at Thinking Solo. I'm on LinkedIn under my name, Ryan Derousseau, and you can find me online at thinkingcapfinancial.com. I will see you soon back in my old digs very soon. And in the meantime, keep grinding.